The General Assembly adjourned May 30th. All bills that passed have been sent to Governor Nixon for his review and action. We're in Jefferson City to talk to the association's longtime lobbyist, Sam Licklider, about the session and about the association's priorities. What were the important issues going into the session?
First of all, home inspector licensing. Then we're always looking for financing issues. Things where we can change the statute slightly and make it easier to get financing, because without financing it's very difficult to sell homes. We wanted the Missouri Real Estate Commission and other agencies to be able to use credit cards throughout the system. We were poised to oppose a tax on services. We wanted to protect the important historic and low-income housing tax credits, as well as protect from any unfortunate changes in the real estate license law.
What about home inspector licensing?
We had a great sponsor who was committed to the issue. We had strong support from several of the home inspector groups. As a matter of fact, it was actually their bill that we were dealing with. In the past, the only opposition has been from a few home inspectors, mostly from smaller communities that just don't want to be licensed. This time, for some reason, we had three groups, all with some sort of a tie to the Show Me Institute in St. Louis, that opposed the bill on effectively libertarian grounds. One fellow said it was an absolute jobs killer. That created significant confusion within the members of the committee, because there were some members of the committee from smaller communities that thought third and fourth class counties ought to be exempt. That we pulled back and tried to make some changes in the bill to address all those issues. We were unsuccessful, but we can start again next year.
What about the other issues? Financing, electronic payments and credit cards, tax on services, tax credits, and the license law.
The financing, that was interesting, because we found that because of changes in the federal law, if you had a property for sale, residential property for sale, on a private road, unless you had a maintenance agreement in place with all the other people on that private road, you couldn't sell the loan on the secondary market. That means you couldn't have long-term financing, your interest rates would go up. So it was important to produce some sort of statutory system which required that people produce those agreements. Representative Don Phillips from the Branson area introduced the bill as House Bill 1524. We passed it through the House and then ran into not problems in the Senate, just a time constraint. We were able to amend it on to House Bill 1103 and Senate Bill 635, both of which passed. Now, we didn't do this alone, because actually a lot of the work was done by the Missouri Bankers Association, which has an interest in this issue because they want to make loans as well. We work closely with lenders and appraisers, all of the other interest groups, to focus on a coherent program that moves the real estate message forward. In terms of the credit card issue, we found that while you could use credit cards on the MRAC's website, you couldn't use it in their office. That required that people that stopped in the office to make sure they either had a check or exact change. We had one realtor that tried to make some changes, was told, well, you have to have a check or cash. Got cash from a ATM. Turned out they didn't have the right amount, and the Real Estate Commission couldn't give change. We hope that this bill, which requires the Office of Administration to set up a statewide system, will help solve that problem. In terms of tax on services, while there were about 4 different bills introduced, actually all of them were constitutional amendments, there was no action past bill introduction. So we did not have to deal with that. In terms of tax credits, they waited till the last day on that, and then 3 attempts were made the last day of session. All of them failed. They started out initially with wanting to change the cap on historic from 140 million down to 75 million. That was rejected. Senator Kurt Schaefer strongly objected to that. He did not carry the day because it did pass the Senate, but Senator Schaefer has been a real advocate of protecting those important credits. The House leadership, of course, has been very firm in their desire to see those credits continued. In terms of license law, we had two things come up. One, a bill, House Bill 1784, would have significantly expanded the exemptions in the license law. It actually would have allowed any communication to be exempt, and I'm not sure how far communication goes. I suspect that the sponsor of the bill had an idea. Another one, and it was an amendment in the second to the last day of session on Senate Bill 668, would have exempted internet sites built solely for the purpose of advertising real property. It was drafted to the wrong statute, but it would have created a lot of confusion anyway. I have to give strong credit to Senator Jim Lemke, because when I found out about that, and frankly I got a text from Representative Michelle Kratky, I went to Senator Lemke, explained what the problem is, and his immediate reaction, because he had control of the bill at this point, was, if it's bad for the realtors, it's coming out, Sam.
What about appraisal licensing? Were changes made there?
Yes. Appraisers are heavily regulated on the federal level. Our licensing act and regulations have to mirror federal requirements. And the feds made some changes. Now, we had until about this time next year to make those changes, but unless we had passed the bill this year, the Appraisal Licensing Board would not have been able to make the rule changes that they needed in order to implement those changes. The bill was introduced by Representative Ellen Brandon. It was House Bill 1988. Passed the House on the federal mandate calendar. The Speaker's office and the floor leader's office were very helpful there. We brought it over to the Senate, and by that time it was too late to really move the bill as a bill. It was amended onto a couple of other bills, so I think the problem is solved.
Advocating for the protection of real property rights is a core mission of the Missouri Association of REALTORS. This mission is carried out through the collective efforts of our 18,000 members, along with the unparalleled experience of our chief lobbyist, Sam Licklider, and the rest of the association's governmental affairs staff. The risk of governmental intrusion to your business has never been higher, and we must continue to reinforce the political strength that we bring to Jefferson City and to your local environments. To learn more about our efforts, go to MissouriRealtor.org.